I think we've all seen how far AI has come in the last couple of years. With ChatGPT, I think we're at a point where, by defining AGI, artificial general intelligence, as the average human, I think we're almost pretty much there, like across every task. Right now, what we're seeing is the AI models, like the latest, say, O3 from OpenAI, has got IQs of over 120, 130. So in a sense, a lot of those IQ scoring is already beating what the humans are.
How's it, Peter? Do you want to come a bit closer, Peter? You're a bit far away from the camera. Let's get you more closer in. So it's just for the recording, it's going to be good. And while Peter's sorting out his camera, let me welcome him on. He is a dear friend. We've worked together for many years. Peter is sitting in Australia. He's currently the data and AI specialist for education at Microsoft, focusing on Azure, OpenAI, and Fabric. Peter works with organizations across higher education, vocational education, and training in K-12 schools, including universities, TAFEs, independents, and Catholic dioceses, as well as departments of education in Australia. He helps key stakeholders prioritize AI use cases that have the biggest impact on the organization and identifies opportunities to resource and fund projects via Microsoft's talent pool and partner ecosystem, from proof of concepts to pilots and production. He's also a Singularity University faculty member. We've done a number of engagements. I actually was with Peter at the Singularity Australia Summit. When was that? That was like in 2019.
6 years ago, something like that, yeah.
2019, yeah. So pretty phenomenal. Welcome, Peter. Let's give a big metaverse round of applause for Peter.
Hey, everyone. This is awesome, Mick. And I think the last time we came in here, we were still sort of like, in the early stages. And look how far it's come. What an amazing community, and also the development of this amazing ecosystem, like taking virtual worlds towards a singularity. Thank you so much for having us, Mick. And it's great to see all the Ubu folks as well here. Great to see all the events coming up, and you and Shane going gangbusters over there, man.
So I think we've got such a great topic to discuss today, guys. It's something that's probably not on most people's minds, because it's quite a forward-looking concept, and a lot of people don't actually consider what it means post-AGI planning. When artificial general intelligence can understand, learn, and apply knowledge across a wide range of tasks, on par or exceeding human intelligence. So let's start with the first question, Peter, is what is post-AGI planning actually mean, and why should we be thinking about it now?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all seen how far AI has come in the last couple of years. With ChatGPT, I think we're at a point where, by defining AGI, artificial general intelligence, as the average human, I think we're almost pretty much there, like across every task. Right now, what we're seeing is the AI models, like the latest, say, O3 from OpenAI, has got IQs of over 120, 130. So in a sense, a lot of those IQ scoring is already beating what the humans are. I've got a couple of slides as well to go through where we've come from, where we're going, and a lot of the things that have been developed in the market. Is that okay if I just jump in there and go through a couple of those?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's do that. We can do that for sure. Nice. I'll unshare as well.
Nice. Just pop this open here. And so, with the transhumanism stuff, it's all about that super intelligence and super longevity and super well-being as an ecosystem here. And just seeing what OpenAI is doing through our work with Microsoft at Azure. They feed us the latest and greatest models and try to make that available for the education market to use. But when Ray Kurzweil first wrote that Singularity is Near book in the 90s, he was predicting all this exponentials and how, when you apply everything to an information technology, right, it's basically continues to double. And what we're seeing is that when he wrote that Singularity is Nearer only recently, he basically just said, well, it's continue to go as planned. We're still seeing that doubling. And a lot of the conservative people back in the days were like, we're not going to have human level AI in 2029. And it turns out that a lot of them are revising their forecasts to maybe in the next 2 to 3 years. And so Ray Kurzweil's like, well, I'm actually being more conservative with my 2029 predictions. And we think the next book he's going to write is going to be The Singularity is Here. We have no idea what's going to happen, because that's exactly the definition of the singularity. And we've seen how much has happened, just even weeks recently. We've seen the giblification, it was only delaying AGI by only a few days. So Sam Altman at OpenAI said, look, they're trying to get things under control, but you wouldn't expect new releases from OpenAI to be delayed, like stuff to break, so sometimes be slow and to deal with capacity challenges. But it turns out that, AGI might come sooner if we stop making these Ghibli images. And we're seeing people take this workflow and apply it to every style. I think we always thought art was going to be the last to go in terms of the human tasks, but it turns out it's going to be one of the first. Same with software engineers. It's a shame what Miyazaki over at Studio Ghibli is feeling right now, right? So even Marcus is going into ChatGPT's Ghibli AI art for promotions. But yeah, he's not happy with all this copyright content happening. But yeah, to that point, Mick, where we are now with those IQ scores, right? 03 is around here. Same with Gemini, 2.5 Pro experiential. And we're seeing the large language models already obviously passing the Turing test. I think you and I, we've all seen that happen anyway with chat. But now the official paper is out, saying GPT 4.5 really being that preferred overly than humans. People find it more human to talk to GPT 4.5 than it is to another person. And that 03 beating this, ARC AGI public training set the scoring of 88% with this 03 model. And they had to come up with a new AGI test just so that, we can actually have something for these AI models to benchmark against, because all the benchmarks are getting saturated, whether it's math or PhD level questions. We're just going to see every benchmark out there getting to 100% by the end of this year, I think, because we're seeing this is, only still early. We had GPT 4.5 and Grok 3 from XAI and Anthropic's Claude 3.7 Sonnet and Llama 4 that's coming this month probably. And by the end of the year, we'll have GPT 5, Grok Video, Claude 4, Gemini 3, O4 from OpenAI, right? So I think the acceleration, as Ray Kurzweil put it, I feel like we are in that knee of the curve of the singularity right now, because we don't know what to expect. We have no idea how to predict this. So what's really important for us is, well, how do we start preparing for this post-AGI world? What is it that we as individuals, we as businesses, we as societies, as, this collection of communities meant to be doing in preparation for the next 12 to 18 months? And yeah, this is why I'm here. I want to have a discussion around how we can help accelerate all that. So what are your thoughts there?
I love it. Do you want to step back on your spot and we can reshare? Just get it up and ready for the. There we go. Awesome. We're back. Brilliant. Can everyone see us again? Can give us a jump if you can see us. Just jump in the crowd. Jump around. Oh yes, that's what we like to see.
It's like a Mexican wave.
Awesome. Mexican wave. We're going to actually do that afterwards. That's a great idea. But I think it's so exciting, but it's also a bit daunting because, we have to strategize of what's coming next. And you say what in the next 12 to 18 months? Is that when you think AGI is going to be here?
Yeah, I think it's going to be already theoretically here, but then people will only see it when it gets adopted in their everyday lives. Chat was only really relevant in seeing deep learning become real in this sort of way because people are actually using it in their daily lives. But also when it comes into our business processes, with Microsoft Copilot, for example, people just know how to use that in their productivity. But then I think in the physical world, people will only realize how fast things have come when they say things like humanoid robots walking down the street. I think that's the ChatGPT moment for robotics, when they actually see that happen. And same with the self-driving cars. And we're seeing, Tesla's Cybercar going to launch in Texas, in Austin, Texas in June, which is literally 2 months from now. And so that
What's
the
that?
people in
The
Austin,
taxi.
yeah, the cybercar, the taxi, the robo taxi rollout, and it's like only when people step into a Waymo right now do they realize that the tech is working. But having every Tesla car fleet in Austin just be able to switch on to this robo taxi service, that's that aha moment. And I think AGI would only be felt when people experience it in their lived experience, in their day-to-day lives. So that's the next 12 to 18 months. Technically, we're already there in terms of the average human intelligence, right?
Yeah, it's like almost like every day you're hearing about a new revelation or a new surprise and delight, which Ray said we're going to see more and more of these surprise and delights more frequently. But what are some of the potential risks and rewards? If we get into this world governed by AGI or these super intelligent systems, what sort of risks or rewards can we look out for or should we plan for?
Yeah. I've got another slide here around the probabilities of this whole P-doom thing. People actually all over the world, I guess, all the AI experts looking at what is the probability of AI being a positive, net positive. So here is something that Vitalik Buterin put together a couple of years ago. Just a nice 2x2 around, is AGI not soon, or is AGI soon?
Just share, Peter, you're not sharing your screen?
Oh, yeah. Let me just pop it up here. Is that okay? Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Now it's up, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a sample of this probability of AI dooming all of humanity. And you see Elon's got a 10 to 20% chance. Vitalik's got a 10% chance. Mark Andreessen, is a businessman. He's got 0%. Jeff Hinton is the godfather of AI, is 10 to 50 to less than to greater than 50% potentially. Jan LeCun, Meta, he says there's no chance because why would you build something that's going to doom humanity? Demis Hassabis, 0 to 25%. So these are a whole range of probabilities from our AI experts and people that are practicing in the field. The folks like Eliezer Yudkowsky, obviously, is the ultimate P-doomer, and he's got 95% chance of doom. So depending on where you sit on the spectrum, that's how you should allocate your sort of resources. If you're expecting, say, 80 to 90% chance of a positive future, there's a lot of things that you could be thinking if AGI is going to happen soon for you. Well, why don't you just retire now? Why bother continue to work? Why don't you actually just take out everything in your pension fund and actually put it towards something that makes you feel better? Or, these are sort of the alternative futures that we could be investing in. And so on a probabilistic approach for it, what we're seeing is that all future value unlikely to be destroyed by misaligned AGI. This is sort of all the folks here. If you think that's going to happen, if you think it's going to be unlikely to be destroyed by misaligned AGI, then you're basically hoping for the best. But for those that are saying that all future value likely to be destroyed by misaligned AGI, then you got to probably prepare for the worst. And I'll just walk you through some of the thinking. I mean, on the reward side, you think about all the challenges in humanity, with these LLMs, these next token prediction things, and now with the reasoning models, we're converting everything into tokens, whether it's text, image, video, speech, multimodal acids, amino acids and brainwaves, into images, videos, and multimodal side, but also manipulation in the humanoid robots, the proteins that could actually look at drug discovery and actually, net new scientific discovery accomplishments with AI and brainwaves as well. So it's basically tokens in and tokens out. And those tokens have real world impact, whether it's the software or the hardware, bits or atoms. Now, the opportunities that look at the problems that we have in the world. I mean, this is probably first world problems, but housing affordability, Australia is the main example. We're in like the bottom 2 least affordable places to live. And surprisingly, China and Hong Kong is the least affordable. But you have these solutions where if you have autonomous vehicles, you can travel all around all of Australia and have these robo vans, right? And turn that into the new housing unit. You could do that and work from anywhere and be able to travel all over. And a friend of ours, Nathan Waters, is actually doing this business called Life on Earth, and he's converting these. When these robo vans become the platform of choice, to the ability to house. And we're seeing, for those that are preparing for potential governments that are not stable to support their own land. So this is Forest City. This is Forest City as an example. So Forest City is an island off Malaysia, and it's a swim away from Singapore. This was actually a failed development place. It's a ghost city because the Chinese investment came in, created an artificial island, so reclaimed this land and had these $1 billion of spent, right? About $100 billion spent building all these high rises and making sure the city is good. But the people didn't come. So there was an opportunity here for, the crypto bros to step in. And this is Balaji. He's actually created the network school, and they're in their second cohort now in Forest City. You can see there's Elise there, my partner there, with Brian Johnson and Vitalik and Brian's son as well. They're trying to create a community out of this by using Bitcoin as a way to decentralize the approach to creating these network states. So, when we have all this AI and automation happen, for the governments that don't have the stability, I think, you're going to have to look at these backup plans around where you want to distribute and, I guess, spread your eggs in terms of where you want to set up with the governments, that you might use Bitcoin as a way, as the currency of choice, as opposed to a fiat currency that the government issues. So, those are sort of some initial thinking around how to potentially plan for the downsides of all this disruption that's coming over the next couple of years. And same with the way that, with drug discovery and the way that we can extend the healthy human lifespan, we have a huge problem around declining population. I mean, just look at China, where the replacement age is very low. They had the one-child policy. Now they have 3-child policy, but no one wants to have any kids because it's too expensive, and society is already accustomed to, that sort of standard of living. And so, with these projections for depopulation, I think with science and technology, by extending the healthy human lifespan for people to live longer and healthier into, finding a way to continue the population without dying, that's actually some of the solutions that we could prevent some of those disasters from coming. And, these are some of the drug discovery examples. We've seen the likes of, Google's investing into isomorphic labs, which is using AI for drug discovery. And these are ways to cure diseases, with Japan, for example, using AI to have the first AI peer-reviewed papers. So it's actually purely generated papers. And this is from a couple of years ago from Sakana AI. It finally got through all that peer review. And so we're going to see that workflow of purely AI generated scientific papers coming through. And of course, our friends at In Silico Medicine raising another 110 billion using AI for drug discovery with new trials and robotic helping hands as well. So all of this pipeline is going to help solve those diseases. And some of those other challenges, you're going to see strikes of people that are disrupted. So because a lot of displacement of jobs is going to happen. This is an example, from the recent, I think, the port strike locations in the US, where they were going to cost $1.4 billion in weekly ag trade at risk because these ports are just unable to operate because the people that are still operating them are unionized and refuse to work when the ports decide to try to automate. Whereas in China, this is what's happening here, right? They're using remote controlled robots to operate multiple of these ports, and driving that efficiency eventually will be fully automated. And so this is where we can actually help accelerate the production of goods and services and the supply chains. And same with things like housing. And, we're sitting, these tiny homes that are manufactured all over, 3D printed homes as well. We're seeing that cybercar and cyber taxi rollouts, and of course the Optimus robot rollout. We're going to see all of this. I think they're producing 5,000 of these humanoid robots this year, and then 50,000 in the next year, and then 500,000 in the following year. So just keep on 10xing until there's going to be more of these humanoids just roaming the streets. And that, I think, feeling the AGI is kind of how that's going to happen. But there's also deep research where it looked at. I asked deep research in OpenAI, which countries should you go? Based on all this post-AGI planning that you should do, and it actually looked at the potential of criteria to assess which countries will be best. For example, resilience to a hostile AGI. Right? You need isolation. You need self-sufficiency. And it actually put New Zealand, Australia, Canada, I'm not too sure because it might become another state in the United States, but Iceland and Switzerland, and Denmark and Ireland, these are the ones that have high resilience because they're, a remote, New Zealand and Australia where continent scale self-sufficiency, an island that's, that can have its own grid with strong cyber defenses. Political and social stability is another metric, making sure that the governments have the ability to be agile and respond to, we've seen what happened during COVID, how governments are able to respond and coordinate with the population, or when AGI comes and the disruption it's going to have on the workforce to help people transition, how resilient and how politically stable are your countries and governments to make sure they can handle that. AGI tech access as well and benefits, all about things around advanced society and internet adoption of AI quickly. Will they be able to incorporate AI into the everyday society and AI and governance and ethics? How are you going to make sure that the AI is aligned to humanity as opposed to just purely creating everything and turning everything into paper clips, as we talked about, with the superintelligence thoughts. And finally, geographic safety from conflict and disaster risk. So yeah, those are sort of the initial thoughts around geolocation, but we're also seeing, with the likes of like the Netflix movies around Leave the World Behind, like these are the doomsday preppers, right? This is like, it doesn't matter what kind of apocalypse might happen, whether it's nuclear apocalypse or AI apocalypse, the billionaires are already seeking these, sort of $300 million members only luxury doomsday bunkers. And, if that's sort of on the spectrum of where you think the future is going to be, well, it might not hurt to start, thinking about how would you be self-sufficient and create your own a way to be self-sufficient in that future. And so this is sort of what a lot of people, I think, in the outback in Australia are already doing with these solar panels and batteries, having that energy self-sufficiency, but also having things like Starlink with internet access and the compute to power a way to defend what you own. If you think about what's already happening in the US, where they're just, Molotoving a whole bunch of Teslas, right? How do you defend from that threat? Because if you have a population that's going to take things away from you, surely, you got to make sure you can be prepared for that. So these humanoid robots could be used for defenses, and the drones and the robot dogs, you can sort of see how China's already painting the future of warfare here. And, you got to have some of these robots, empowering these robots with your own energy, with your own compute, to make sure that they're working for you and maybe not part of a network that could be controlled by someone else. But yeah, there's all about the compute side as well, running your own open source models using your own hardware. And we've seen the likes of George Hotz, who was famous for jailbreaking the iPhone, now come up with the Tiny Box. And he's been iterating by combining these GPUs, off-the-shelf GPUs like the 4090s and the 5090s, as well as the AMD GPUs, combining them to be a cost-effective data centers. I think with the NVIDIA ones, 6 of the 4090s, you can turn into 2 H100s. So it's a fraction of the cost, but it's able to be put together in your own home and run off your own grid. And there's open source frameworks like Exolabs that will allow you to combine even these Mac Minis, right? The M4 chip is super powerful from Apple. And so we're seeing that the Mac Studios, the M4 is two of those will power you to run DeepSeek R1 locally. And so, having that pretty much AGI, open source AGI running on your own servers to power whatever you need, whether it's your humanoids to do the goods and services or the defenses, but also even off-the-shelf Mac Minis with these Exolabs. And finally, you can run pretty much every open source software with just one click using this platform called Pinocchio. Pinocchio is a really low touch way to get started with open source software, because you literally just install it on your desktop and you click one of these apps and installs basically equivalent of ChatGPT and the videos and the ability to run all sorts of software, all open source locally. So yeah, that's just a bit of thoughts on that as well. So let me jump back in here.
Wow, fantastic! Thanks so much for that. I think it's let me just share my camera as well.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I think it's so interesting. There's so many potential rewards ahead of us, solving a lot of these complex problems by using AI, like you just showcased. And there's also the risks of like loss of human agency or AI alignment issues or economic displacement, like you showed in that Chinese example in that city.
Yeah.
So, I think this key challenge is going to be control and alignment. And how do we ensure these super intelligence beings act in humanity's best interest?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think a lot of the people worry that these AIs will be used for nefarious things. People might use the AI to do cyber, hacking and all sorts of nasty things. But if you think the way that societies work, we collectively determine, say in a jury, in a society that's a democracy and has rule of law, we determine who goes to jail, right, based on the laws that we vote in for and legislate. We determine, using, I think the governments, I guess, have a monopoly on violence. The police basically arrests the individuals that are not conforming with the rest of the laws that the society agrees to. So in an AGI world, everyone should have their own AGIs. So everyone has an AGI that's aligned to their individual. So everyone has collective power. And by combining those AGIs, you could technically, police the people that are using their AGIs for nefarious reasons. And so not everyone's going to get access to those super data center clusters like OpenAI with something like Stargate. So those are easily tracked. It's the individuals that have some GPUs like the tiny box at home that might be doing it for nasty things. At the same time, you'll have positive actors that are also going to be using their AGIs to work against the bad AGIs. So yeah, so that's sort of how I see how we can find a way to distribute and open source so we can collectively as a society shape how we police those well-intentioned, because we want to use AIs for the actual positive impact. I think Elon is going to rebrand Tesla into sustainable abundance, because he wants his AIs to, create this abundance for society, whether it's production of goods and services with those humanoids, but also in a sustainable way for the benefit of humanity, not just destroying nature, everything around the climate. He's, shifting his mission statement from just sustainability to sustainable abundance. And that's the future I want to see as well.
Yeah, it's so interesting. There's just, it's something that actually is going to affect every single one of us in such a big way. How should governments, businesses, and individuals prepare for this impact of AGI and beyond? Like, do we need to have our own data centers at our house, like you were saying?
Exactly. I think every government needs to run it, but also empower the individuals to run their own as well. I think there's a lot of discussion, a lot of AI ethics and policies being put together, especially in Europe, but also in the States, they're trying to stop the export of GPUs and control the number of compute you can run. I mean, that's not going to work. I think people are still going to find a way to do that anyway. And it's actually stopping the innovation on the upside, right? You want to maximize the upside, but mitigate the downside. And the best way to do that is to allow more open source and distribution. So I think first, I guess the governments really need to know what the impact of these AIs will be for society, like catch on. I think a lot of them are catching on now, but knowing what actions to take from that. I think that period of gaining insight over the last 2 years has happened. They're sort of starting to know what to do, at least in the Western world and the sort of mature governments anyway. But then taking action in terms of, what to transition society to. We talked about potentially universal basic income for those that need to transition from the existing jobs that are displaced, like truck drivers or artists and software engineers. Hey, I think software engineers are probably coming faster instead of the truck drivers at this rate. But transitioning that society into where you can decouple work from income, and that's going to be a huge shift in the contract that we have with society, because it used to be that if you're able to work and using your labor as a way to find a way to exchange value in this economy, that used to work out, and you're able to earn and make a living. But when more and more of that capital shifts towards the people that own the means of production, as opposed to providing their own labor, because the humanoids and the software agents, the AI agents, are going to do all the digital and physical work. Well, then, what's there left to do for everyone else? So decoupling work from income and having a stake in the means of production is sort of ultimately how we need to reshape the societal contract. And the way I see it in Australia play out is that there's already a program called the superannuation scheme. So, as you're working, you put your money, the employers pay towards your pension fund, basically, and that pension fund invests into the stock market. So you have a way to have a stake in the means of production. So the magnificent 7 stocks would be a good investment if you're able to just tap your pension in right now with the liquidity to put that in to have some sort of stake, whether it's Tesla shares or Nvidia or all the other tech stocks. But that's sort of the mechanism we have, and it'll just be about making sure that people are not left behind as a result, in terms of that ownership of the means of production.
Wow, it's so interesting. It's like a total. It sounds like it's so doable, but it's a total mindset shift. There's a total evolution of society, and how we live today is not how we're going to live in the future at all. And just the idea of decoupling, our work from our meaning, or how we earn. It's quite a big concept.
We don't have long, right? That's the thing. It's happening so fast that governments they've identified the problem, but the time it takes to act is not there's not enough time. So that's why I think I pointed to those individual actions you could do in preparation for it, because the governments, the policies, they're reactive, and so I think as individuals, getting access to liquidity, in terms of your funds, and putting it together towards those allocations, based on your probability of when AGI is going to come and whether it's your PDOOMs, that time to act is now. So I'll just show one last slide, and then I think we can go into Q&A, because this is sort of what I put together around the probabilities of when we'll get to AGI on manifold markets. And manifold markets is kind of like poly market, but it's based on consensus. And so there's like a 4% chance right now from consensus that AGI happens before 2026. It jumps to 12% on consensus before 2027, and then suddenly 40% before 2028, and then 51% to 2029. So it's already like a likely chance.
Ray's prediction is 2029.
Yeah, so it's a likely chance, 51%. That the markets in manifold think that that's going to happen. And so, like, based on that allocation, like, what if you're going to retire? If your retirement age is another 30 years or 20 years even, let alone 4 years. So find the liquidity in your pension fund and put it towards something that you're actually going to be seeing AGI play out, is what post-AGI planning is going to all be about. Whether it's in Bitcoin or the Mag 7, and you're going to see that ramp up because that shift of the means of production, that sort of societal contract is going to shift towards those companies that are using AI to create all the goods and services. And so, without the governments being able to shift that policy to your benefit, to society's benefit, you might as well start acting on your own right now. Because even you can see that it gets to about what, 70, 75%, 76, 78% in the next 10 years. So max, it's very likely that it's going to happen within the next 10 years based on this consensus.
Wow. Yeah, so we are running short on time. We only got 10 minutes left. We've got to still, it's such an interesting topic. I know we want to open up the floor for questions. We've even got 2 Peters now. So you can share your camera again. Let's share our cameras. And I just want to quickly ask you one last question, and then we'll open it up to the audience. If anyone's got questions, you can just go in those blue circles and unmute yourself and ask, or you can just write in the chat and we will answer them. Our AI coach has been taking notes of all of that you've been saying. And Paul, awesome conversation. Thank you, Peter. Thanks, and Paul. It's the logical way forward. Absolutely agree. Thank you, Brendan. If anyone has any questions, there we go. Peter's back up. I just want to ask you, Peter, just one last question. Peter also does, another part of Peter does this organization called Transhumanism Coin, which is really focused on this convergence between humans and machines and AGI. And, do you want to just tell us a little bit about, what role do you think this enhancement of, converging with the machine could play for us as humans? From technologies like Neuralink. And I actually saw a presentation at A360 where the new Neuralink, it actually grows on your brain. It actually regrows and meshes with the brain stems in a very harmonious way, which is phenomenal. So that's also quite close to becoming a reality. I don't know what your thoughts on this convergence is.
It's right on time with Ray's predictions as well. Like, his second book is how humans will merge with AI. And, we already saw, Nolan Arbor basically able to use his thoughts to, play games like Civilization 6 when he's a quadriplegic. It's so beneficial for humanity already, for people that, have lost those abilities. And now, in a sense, they have super abilities. So when I talked about owning the energy, owning the compute, that then leads you to the ability to potentially merge with your own AIs. So your own AGIs, that's, a complete advocate for you and defend you against the other AGIs, being able to ultimately merge with the AIs with your Neuralink or something like that will enable you to transcend your biological limitations. And that's, still in the realm of science fiction, but I think from what Ray Kurzweil was saying is that if you can maintain that stream of consciousness from your biological neurons to synthetic neurons, that, extending your consciousness and your brain through synthetics and having that compute intertwined with the AGIs, that sort of additional neocortex, in a sense, that tertiary layer is actually added on through the Neuralink that they're able to do. So having the ability to do that to your own AIs, with your own AIs and your own compute, allows you to have that self-sufficiency. Because ultimately, you don't want to have a third-party, brain-computer interface that you're not aligned to initially, and the AIs that they're going to merging with you, you don't want to merge with a proprietary model, because you don't know what's in there, and it might not have all the instructions and history, the things that you wanted your AGIs to do in the past. So that's transhumanism in a nutshell, because we've gone from super longevity that we talked about earlier to super well-being as well, making sure no one gets left behind. But the super intelligence will come to us through this merger of humanity with AI.
So exciting, and I think for our kids, everyone here in the audience that has kids, I'm having a baby in a couple of weeks. Our kids are going to have such a different future to the way we all grew up and the lives we've all led. It's going to be totally different, like unrecognizable from our own lives, right?
That's right.
Which is just fascinating. Yeah.
I just see my nephews and nieces. It's like, I mean, they're still in primary school and they're starting to use AI already, because the AI tutors are helping guide them on their critical thinking. But it was completely different when they don't need to work. They basically will do work for the sake of as a hobby, playing against other humans in sport, only doing things where it's enjoyable and also worthwhile and something that they can find meaning as well. That's going to be the exciting future. I see there's a question from Brendan there. Do you know what level of a computer personal AGI will need? And obviously for the business of AGI, there needs to be a link to the virtual world. Yeah, definitely. I think, so for example, DeepSeek R1 is like 671 gigabytes and can be run on those two of those M3 Ultras from the Mac Studio. So like, that's already, I think, pretty good. Like that's like pretty close to AGI in terms of the reasoning. So being able to, extend that open source model to, turning into actuators, into humanoid robots, I think that's pretty much also on par. So yeah, I mean, that's awesome about open source. The next version of, GPT 4.5 is 18 trillion parameters. So it's like 10 times bigger than GPT-4. I mean, that's the proprietary models that you'll need, superintelligence for to come up with net new scientific discovery. But for your everyday tasks, like, just get a robot to do your housework, I think you can run that on an open source model with those tiny boxes from George Hotz. So yeah, and there needs to be a link to the virtual world as well. So yeah, you're right. Giving them access, an extension of your AGI into the real world that represents your interest, to do all your shopping as your agent, and to actually go out into the world and help you make transactions and advocate for you like an attorney. So this is what you want control of and running on your own servers without any other people trying to advertise you or getting into your mind space.
Wow, that's a really, really interesting topic. I think we need to have another session on this, and we have run out of time, so we want to give a big jumping round of applause for Peter. If everyone can jump around, show some love for Peter. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
Beautiful. Have a great day, and
thank you so much.
We appreciate you all as robot avatars. We'll see you in the physical or the digital worlds in the future. Thanks, everybody.